It's kind of wild how, like, everything in modern life just bombards us with information, notifications, emails, you name it.
It's true.
Yeah, and it's like you can't escape it?
Totally. It's this constant barrage, and it can be, well, overwhelming, to say the least.
Absolutely overwhelming. So we thought it'd be fascinating to take this deep dive into Stoicism, this ancient philosophy that, believe it or not, might actually have some really relevant advice for navigating all this chaos we're talking about.
Yeah, because it feels like everyone's looking for a little more peace in their lives these days, right?
Exactly. And you'd think an ancient philosophy would be the last place to look, but
But Stoicism isn't about, like, ignoring your emotions or pretending everything's fine, you know?
right.
It's really more about giving yourself the tools to understand and manage how you react to everything going on around you.
Mm.
So you can hopefully find some inner peace.
So not repressing those feelings, but like mastering them.
Yeah, exactly. Mastering them.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So where did this whole Stoicism thing even come from?
Well, we got to rewind all the way back to ancient Athens,
Yeah.
something like the 3rd century BC. And there was this philosopher named Zeno of Citium.
Okay.
And he had this pretty radical idea at the time that true happiness, what he called eudaimonia,
Eudaimonia. Okay.
didn't rely on things like, wealth or your status or even good health, all those things we can't really control.
So people were chasing external validation even way back then.
Seems like it, right?
Sounds pretty familiar.
Yeah. It's a tale as old as time. But anyway, Zeno, he really believed that the key to like a truly fulfilling life was virtue.
Okay.
Living in harmony with the universe, accepting fate, that kind of thing.
So not getting too caught up in the things outside your control.
Yeah, pretty much. Now, Zeno, he laid the groundwork, but Stoicism really took off with a couple names you might recognize.
Okay.
Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor,
Oh, wow, yeah.
and Seneca, the playwright. And their writings are still so relevant. Even today, I mean, it's incredible, really.
Especially Marcus Aurelius, right?
Right.
Like he was running an empire.
I know.
And still grappling with all these big philosophical questions.
I mean, talk about pressure. And that's what's so great about it, Like in his own personal meditations, he basically showed us how to use Stoicism in leadership, in making decisions, in just dealing with the everyday stuff.
It's really fascinating that Stoicism is having such a resurgence right now, though. I mean, you see it everywhere.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it makes sense, though, don't you think?
Yeah.
Our world is only getting more complex and uncertain. It's natural that people want some way to deal with all that.
Absolutely.
And Stoicism offers that, like this framework for navigating all those curveballs life throws your way.
And a big part of that framework, right, is this idea of the dichotomy of control.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
It sounds a little intimidating, I have to admit.
It's actually pretty straightforward. Basically, just means you need to recognize what's in your control and what's not. Okay, so we have control over our own thoughts, our judgments, our actions, all that internal stuff.
But, like, what other people think of us, or even global events.
Right.
Those are totally out of our hands, right?
Yeah, exactly. And even, to some extent, our own health, you
Right.
know? We can do our best.
Right.
Some things are just beyond our control. And Stoicism it's all about realizing that,
Yeah.
Because when we try to control those uncontrollable things, that's when we get stressed. We get anxious.
It's like trying to control the weather or something.
Exactly. It's a recipe for disaster.
Total recipe for disaster.
Right. So Stoicism's like, hey, let's shift that focus. Why don't we put that energy towards the stuff we can actually influence?
Okay, I like that.
Right? Like our responses, how we choose to act, our mindset.
So instead of stressing about being stuck in traffic,
Right.
I could like actually use that time productively, you know?
Exactly.
Maybe like listen to a podcast.
There you go.
Get ahead.
That's it. It's about finding that inner peace, even when everything around you feels completely chaotic,
Okay, yeah.
which kind of leads us to another really important Stoic principle,
Okay.
living in accordance with nature.
Living in accordance with nature. I'm not going to lie, that one's a little over my head.
Yeah, it sounds a little vague at first,
Yeah.
but it's actually pretty profound when you really think about it.
Okay.
So to the Stoics, nature represents this like rational order of the universe, the big picture.
Okay.
And living in accordance with it means accepting reality as it is.
Not how we like wish it would be.
Exactly. And I know that's easier said than done.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's about realizing that, hey, sometimes plans change. Sometimes flights get delayed.
Yeah.
We can't control every little detail.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
It's about embracing the unexpected.
Exactly. It's not about just giving up and resigning yourself to fate. It's about recognizing that we're all part of something much bigger than ourselves.
I like that. Yeah.
Right. And by accepting the things we can't control, we free ourselves up to focus on, responding to those challenges with more wisdom,
Yeah.
more resilience.
It's about choosing your battles, right?
Exactly.
Like not sweating the small stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about understanding where your energy is best spent.
Okay, I like that.
Which brings us to the 4 virtues at the very heart of Stoicism.
The 4 virtues.
Yep. Wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance.
We're getting into it now.
We are. And these aren't just some lofty ideals. These are like active practices, things we can work on to, live more fulfilling lives.
So these are virtues you can actually like put into practice.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm into that. Tell me more.
All right, so let's start with wisdom.
Okay.
What does it even mean to be wise, especially today when we're constantly bombarded with information?
Right. Everyone's got a hot take on something these days.
I know, right? So Stoicism says true wisdom starts with, really knowing yourself.
Okay.
It's about examining your thoughts, questioning your judgments, even when it feels a little uncomfortable.
So it's not enough to just be smart or, have all the information.
Not at all. It's about using that knowledge to make sound judgments, to figure out, why you react the way you do.
It's like you have to think about your thinking.
Yeah, exactly. Be more mindful.
Meta thinking.
Exactly. And from that place of self-awareness, we can make better choices. We can look for the truth, even when it's hard, and we can start living in a way that feels truer to ourselves.
Okay, I can get behind that.
Right.
So that's wisdom.
That's wisdom.
What about justice? Where does that come in?
All right, so justice to the Stoics. It's about more than just, laws in the legal system, right?
Right.
It's about recognizing that every single person has value, inherent worth.
Okay.
And we need to treat each other accordingly, with fairness, respect, empathy, the whole shebang.
So even when, and maybe especially when, we disagree with someone,
Oh, especially then.
we should still try to, understand where they're coming from,
Exactly. Listen with an open mind. It's about bridging those divides.
which is, so important these days.
Absolutely. And that's where courage comes in. Because it takes guts to have those tough conversations.
Oh, for sure.
To stand up for what you believe in, even when it's not the popular opinion. And just as importantly, it takes courage to admit when you're wrong.
Courage isn't about being fearless, right?
No, not at all.
It's about doing the right thing even when it feels scary.
Exactly. It's about facing those fears head on and acting with integrity no matter what.
I like it. All right, so I've got wisdom, justice, courage. What was the last one?
The last one is temperance,
Temperance.
which is all about moderation and balance
Okay.
in all things.
Everything in moderation.
Exactly.
Isn't that like the old saying?
It is. And it's so relevant.
Especially today, right?
Yeah.
I mean, instant gratification is everywhere.
It's true. It's like constant temptation. So temperance is about remembering to hit pause, to reflect, to make conscious choices that align with our values.
Yeah.
It's about not just chasing every little desire that pops into your head.
So it's about resisting those urges.
Exactly. And finding contentment in the simpler things, living intentionally.
Okay. It really is. It's about finding that balance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
having that piece of cake, but maybe not the whole thing.
Right, exactly. Not depriving yourself, but also not going overboard.
Exactly. And it applies to how we react to things too. You don't have to be a slave to those immediate impulses. That anger or envy or even that constant need for more.
Okay, so we've talked about these 4 Stoic virtues: wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. And it's pretty amazing how these ideas from thousands of years ago can still be so relevant to our lives today.
It really is, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's one thing to understand them in theory,
Oh, absolutely.
It's another thing to actually live them out. So any advice for how we can actually bridge that gap?
Well, it's all about putting these virtues into practice, right? And one of the best ways to do that is to remember that, that dichotomy of control we were talking about earlier.
Okay, yeah. So focusing on our own thoughts, our own actions, basically all the stuff we can actually control.
Exactly. And not getting bogged down with the stuff we can't, right?
Right.
So, for example, let's say you're really nervous about a big presentation at work.
Oh.
Instead of letting that anxiety just, eat you alive, what if you took a stoic approach?
Okay, so like I can't control whether everyone's going to love my presentation, right?
Exactly. You can't control other people's reactions,
Right.
but what can you control?
Well, I can control how well I prepare, I
Yeah,
guess.
exactly. You can control how much effort you put in, how much thought you put into it. You can even control your breathing, right? To try and stay present in the moment.
So it's about focusing on what I can influence, which makes me feel a little less powerless in a situation that I know is probably going to make me anxious.
Exactly. It gives you back some of that control.
Okay, I like that.
Right. And here's another technique that might sound kind of strange at first, but
Okay.
it's called negative visualization.
Negative visualization. What is that?
So it's a Stoic practice where you basically mentally rehearse things that could go wrong.
So in this presentation example, it would be like, I'd imagine myself totally bombing it.
Exactly.
That sounds terrifying.
I know, right? But here's the thing. The point isn't really to scare yourself. It's more about taking away the power of those what-if scenarios.
Okay.
Because when we've already mentally prepared for those worst-case scenarios, they don't have as much power over us, right?
So it's like if something does go wrong, I'm not going to totally freak out because I've already thought about it.
Exactly. You're way more likely to stay calm, be adaptable, Plus, it also kind of makes you appreciate what you have right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Because when you visualize things going badly, it kind of puts things into perspective, and you realize, hey, things aren't so bad right now.
That's a good point. It's like taking a second to appreciate the good before, like, even if just hypothetically it's gone.
Exactly. And, Stoicism isn't about pretending everything's perfect or, walking around with rose-colored glasses on all the time.
Right.
It's really just about giving ourselves the tools to handle whatever life throws at us and do it with a little more resilience.
Yeah. Handle it like a stoic.
Exactly.
So if there was just one thing you want our listeners to take away from this whole deep dive on Stoicism, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is just to remember you always have a choice. You always have a choice in how you respond to challenges.
Mm.
You can let external things control your emotions, or you can focus on what you can control and cultivate that inner peace. It's up to you.
It's really powerful to think about it like that. Like you have the power to choose your response.
Exactly. You have way more power than you think.
I love that. Well, this has been fantastic. It's been so enlightening to really dig into this ancient philosophy and to see how much wisdom it still has to offer us today.
It's been a pleasure.
So as you go about your day-to-day, maybe think about, how you can bring a little bit of this stoic mindset into your own life. Maybe try one of those negative visualizations.
It might just surprise you.
Exactly.
Tough.
Next time on The Deep Dive.